Hey guys, it's Olivia, and today I'm going to be talking about the books I read this summer. This summer I read a total of 24 books. I didn't have a lot of time to read at the end of the summer, so I sorted them by months, so you'll be able to see I read a ton in the first 2 months, and then it just kind of went downhill. My school gets out mid-May, so for the rest of that month, I read a total of 5 books. I don't have a specific order I read them in, because to be honest, I don't remember. I just wrote down what month I read them in. So the first book is Not If I Save You First, written by Allie Carter. The second book is A Court of Wings and Ruin, written by Sarah J. Maas. It came out finals week for me in 2017, so I'm really late to read this book. When it first came out, I started reading it that day. I got about 100 pages in. The third book is Kikorella, written by Ashley Poston. I love this book. I recommend it. It's very quick and it's very fun. So if you're feeling just a really quick read, I'd pick this book up. It's really fun. The fourth book I read is Warcross, written by Marie Lu. The second book, Wildcard, comes out this month, so I'm probably going to be picking that up. I'm really excited to read that. I'm excited to see what our main character does with the information she just learned at the end of the book. The last book I read in May was A List of Cages, written by Robin Rowe. This book was, oh my gosh, it was amazing, but it was soul crushing at the same time. I cried for 3 days straight reading this book. I'm not even kidding. I think I read it in one night because you cannot stop. Once you're in it, you just want to know what happens next. And I just cried forever and ever and ever. And I recommend that you keep 3 boxes of tissues next to you because this one is emotional. I just realized after I clicked the end button for the May books that I had more books that I read in May, and I wrote them down on this paper because I knew that me in the future would forget, because I had some of them on PDF and I gave 2 of them to my friend who's sitting back there, which is why you can probably hear the keyboard clacking away because she's doing homework. I read To All the Boys I Loved Before, written by Jenny Han. I also read P.S. I Still Love You and Forever and Always Laura Jean. For real this time, I read The Kissing Booth by Beth Rickles because I wanted to read it before the movie came out. The first one I have in this pile is Sam and Isla's Last Hurrah, written by Rachel Cohn and David Levithon. The second was Panic, written by Lauren Oliver. Legendary, written by Stephanie Garber. Royals, written by Rachel Hawkins. From Twinkle with Love, written by Zendaya Menon. I highly recommend this book. This is one of my favorite ones that I read this summer. A Short History of the Girl Next Door, written by Jared Reck. Once again, this is a tearjerker, so have some tissues ready. It's sad. It talks a lot about loss and death and accepting yourself and others. I know for a fact this is the last book I read in June because I read the rest of the series in July. It is Ruby Red, written by Kirsten Greer. For the month of July, I read 5 books. I continued reading the Ruby Red series, and I read Emerald Green and Sapphire Blue, written by Kirsten Greer. I love this series. I highly recommend it. It's so fun, and it's just action-filled. I also read Delirium, written by Lauren Oliver once again. It felt to me like I was reading the same chapter the entire book. It took me about 4 days, probably longer, to read this book because I couldn't get into it. It wasn't for me. I read They Both Die at the End, written by Adam Silvera. This book is amazing. I would recommend it to anyone. It's really sad, obviously, as you can see by the title. There are some deaths involved. It's just a really quick story about 2 people who are becoming friends on their final day on Earth together, and it's just very heartwarming, and it makes you think about life. The last book I read in July was The Poppy War, written by R.F. Kwan. This book was phenomenal. I cannot wait for the second book. Everything about this book was just amazing. It's probably one of my favorite fantasy books of all time. It's a militaristic fantasy, and it's so well written. All of the history that's involved and all of the combat and all of the war strategies are just so brilliant, it's kind of scary. For the month of August, I read 3 books. Well, I read 2 and I reread 1. My school starts early August, so I haven't really gotten a chance to read much. The book that I reread was The Darkest Minds, written by Alexander Bracken. I reread this book after I saw the movie because the movie was so well done and I actually really loved it. I have a review posted. I'll link it up here. The next 2 books I read were actually part of a series. I read Daughter of the Pirate King, which is the first one, and Daughter of the Siren Queen, which is the second, written by Tricia Levenseller. I really like this duology. I thought it was super fun. It has a lot of action in it, and there's never really a dull moment. Our main character, Alosa, she's so funny, and she's very quick with her words, and she's also one of the smartest characters I've read this summer. I'm going to be ranking my top 5 favorite reads of the summer. I'm going to be starting at 5, and I'm going to go to 1. From Twinkle with Love, written by Cynthia Menon, was in my top 5 because I just really loved the storyline, and I loved how creative this character was. I mean, I wouldn't have never thought to make a character like Twinkle. She's just so out there, and she's so like herself, and she just does what she wants and what she loves, and she meets a lot of people that she would have never met unless she decided to go out of her own way and to accomplish things that she always wanted to do. Twinkle is an aspiring director and filmmaker. Twinkle gets messages from like this mysterious guy who calls himself N. He's her secret admirer. He sends her lots of notes and emails and things like that. And while she's making her movie, she meets her producer, Sahil. And she and Sahil immediately hit it off, but she's still talking to N. So that's when things get a little bit, you know, chaotic. And at the same time, she's making a movie. Next is A Short History of the Girl Next Door. History of the Girl Next Door follows Matt, who is an aspiring filmmaker and film critic, and he is in love with his next door neighbor, Tabby, who gets into a car accident and she dies. When Tabby dies, Matt's world goes crazy, and he's just like filled with all these emotions that he doesn't know exactly how to express, and at school things are just not what they used to be, and he's just in his head about a lot of things. And this book really just talks about how Matt feels and accepting loss and hopefully moving on from this loss, but still remembering all the good things before it. The next book is Ruby Red, written by Kirsten Greer. This is part of a series, as I mentioned earlier, so all the books are included in this, really. This series is about a girl who finds out that she's a time traveler. She's always known about her family has a time travel gene, but she thought her cousin Charlotte, much like the rest of her family, had this gene. And so she expected to just be normal throughout life and just let Charlotte deal with all this craziness. And she really didn't believe it at all until it happened to her. It also has a movie, but it's in German, and it's called Reubenrot, but you can find the English translated version. I think it's on YouTube. If not, just Google it and it should come up. I couldn't find it on iTunes, so you do have to Google it. The next book is A List of Cages, written by Robin Rowe. This book follows Julian, who's a foster kid. Well, he lives with his uncle, but his uncle's really abusive, and it follows his life and his old foster brother, Adam, who helps him through high school and to get away from his uncle. And it really just details Julian's life and how he deals with things. Julian's not the only one dealing with things in this book, though. All of the characters have their own like plot lines, though some of them are a lot shorter than Julian's. Last book, and my favorite that I read this summer, was The Poppy War, written by R.F. Kuang. I really can't say enough about this book. It's so amazing. You have to read it for yourself, honestly, because there's so much happening in this book. You can't really give a solid summary because every single part of this book is different. It first starts off with Rin, who's the main character, in her village trying to take this test to get into their military academy, and then it goes to her in the military academy, and then parts of the war that happens in this book. It's phenomenal. All of the parts of it are so good. The war scenes and the battle strategy is probably the best I've ever read. It's so well thought out, and it's just amazing. You have to read it for yourself. This book kind of reminds me of like Mulan in that plot point, except it's more like adult, I guess, and it's so good. If you enjoy militaristic like fantasies or just any really fantasy that has a lot of action, I would recommend this book to you.